Hey everyone, and welcome back. This deep dive, we're going to be taking a deep breath ourselves and exploring breath meditation. Specifically, we'll be diving into keeping the breath in mind. Ajahn Lee, the author, really emphasizes a practical approach, which I appreciate, and it's rooted in the Thai forest tradition of Buddhism. Now, this book goes pretty deep, so we're here to help distill it down to the good stuff. Ajahn Lee himself was a forest monk, really lived and breathed this stuff, and he actually calls breath meditation the shortest, easiest, and most effective way to, get this, a centered mind.
It's funny you use that phrase, centered mind, because that's something that Ajahn Lee really emphasizes, but he doesn't just tell you to find your center right. He gives you these really interesting analogies.
Okay, yeah, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So picture this. An uncentered mind is like a homeless person, exposed to the elements, vulnerable, and it's constantly having to fend for itself.
Right.
But a centered mind, that's a fortress, solid, strong, a safe place where all these really valuable qualities.
Like virtues.
Exactly, can be cultivated.
So it's like our mind is this fortress, and through breath meditation, we build up the tools, the weapons to defend it.
Yeah, and you know, it's really cool. Ajahn Lee uses this amazing analogy of a bridge to describe how the different aspects of the Buddhist path, virtue, concentration, discernment, they all work together.
Oh, I love a good analogy. Lay it on me.
So imagine you're trying to build a bridge. Virtue is like establishing the foundation on one side of the river, and discernment, that's like getting to the other side. But without that stable structure in the middle, the centered mind, your bridge is going nowhere fast.
So you're saying you can't just have the desire to reach the other side, the discernment, you need that steady, centered presence, the bridge, to actually make it happen.
And that's where I think so many of us get tripped up. Ajahn Lee compares it to, get this, a pilot flying blind. Trying to achieve liberation through discernment alone is like flying without knowing where to land.
Okay, that's an image that'll stick with you.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can see how that happens in everyday life. We get so caught up in chasing goals and gathering information, we forget to cultivate that inner stability.
We forget to check if we have a map, right?
Right.
We're so busy building the plane while we're flying it. Luckily, Ajahn Lee gives us some of those tools, those navigational tools, with his breath meditation techniques.
He seems to lay out like 2 methods for breath meditation.
He does.
Which is interesting. It's almost like he's giving us a couple of different approaches, which I always appreciate.
Exactly. And what I love is that he says method 2 is kind of like the more straightforward way to get started.
Okay, perfect.
But don't think for a second that it's simplistic.
All right.
It's all about really cultivating this really deep awareness of the breath.
So walk me through this method too. Like, what makes it so special? What should we be paying attention to?
So unlike some other meditating techniques where you might be trying to like force your breath into this rigid structure, method 2 is about really befriending your own natural rhythm.
Okay.
Ajahn Lee breaks it down into these 7 really clear steps, and it starts with, finding a comfortable posture.
Okay, hold on. I have to stop you right there. I have a confession to make. I've tried breath meditation before, and I always get caught up in the control issue. Like, I'm trying to control my breath, and it just never ends up well.
Of course. It's such a common thing. But that's where Ajahn Lee's guidance is so helpful, because he really emphasizes that it's not about wrestling your breath into submission.
Right.
It's more like gently observing it and making these really subtle adjustments. He even compares it to, like, tuning a musical instrument. You're not forcing it. You're listening closely and making these micro adjustments until you find that perfect resonance.
That is a way better image than me just like fighting my breath.
Right.
So he says, find a comfortable posture. What else is important in these 7 steps?
Yeah, he talks about, bringing your attention to the breath, noticing that natural rhythm without trying to change it. But here's where it gets really cool. Ajahn Lee actually encourages you to spread your awareness beyond just the nostrils or the chest.
Okay.
He wants you to actually feel the breath throughout your entire body.
Oh, wow. So like a full body scan.
It's like creating this mental map of where you feel the breath in your system.
That's so cool.
Yeah, you can feel it in the base of your skull. You can feel it like traveling down your spine.
Wow.
Even like sense it flowing into your limbs all the way out to your fingertips.
I'm already like feeling more relaxed just thinking about it.
Right.
Amazing. So we've got posture, observation, but not control, this kind of like letting it be and this full body awareness. What else? This is so cool. Okay, so we've got the fortress, we've got the bridge. Now we're mapping the breath throughout our entire system. Ajahn Lee is speaking my language. But you mentioned something earlier that I want to circle back to. Those guests, you can't just leave me hanging with visions and weird
Oh,
sensations.
right, those unexpected visitors that might pop up in meditation.
Yeah.
So Ajahn Lee understood that, even with the best roadmap, sometimes our minds wander.
Oh, yeah. Tell me something new. Mine practically invented wandering.
He describes these guests as these unexpected sensory experiences,
Yeah.
like vivid images, sounds, even unusual physical feelings, things you really weren't expecting to encounter on your meditation
Mhm.
cushion.
Right.
And he actually gets surprisingly specific. It's not just like vague shapes and random noises. He talks about seeing lights, hearing voices, even feeling like you're floating or sinking into the ground.
Okay, hold on. I thought we were talking about meditation, not a horror movie. So
Right.
how are we supposed to handle these unexpected guests, especially when they're kind of out there?
Well, that's the thing. Ajahn Lee, he cautions us against getting too caught up in them, whether they seem like super pleasant or super freaky.
So don't freak out if a talking giraffe shows up in your meditation. Got it.
Exactly. He emphasizes this idea of non-attachment. We acknowledge them, we don't cling to them, we don't freak out about them, we just let them be.
Okay.
It's like watching clouds go by.
Okay, non-attachment. Got it.
Yeah.
But some of these guests sound intense. Like, how do we cultivate that kind of mental fortitude to not get, swept away?
That's the practice, right?
Hmm.
Ajahn Lee would say it's about using the breath as this kind of anchor,
Okay.
this steady point of reference, even when those unexpected guests come knocking. And that's where the real magic happens, because by learning to kind of observe them without judgment or attachment, we gain this incredible insight into the nature of our own minds.
It's like those guests are part of the training, showing us how to stay grounded even when things get a little unpredictable. Okay, this is all incredibly fascinating, but I do want to kind of zoom out for a second. How does cultivating this centered mind actually impact our everyday lives?
I think that's where Ajahn Lee's teachings go from theoretical to practical.
Hmm.
He believed that, the mental resilience and clarity that we're cultivating through breath meditation, it can really transform how we handle everything, like stress, relationships, difficult emotions.
So it's like a gym membership for our minds,
Yes.
but instead of getting ripped, we're getting
Centered.
there you go.
Building that inner strength.
Exactly. And remember that bridge analogy. It's like with this centered mind, we can actually use our discernment more effectively. We're not just gathering information, we can actually see things clearly and make wiser choices.
It's like we're building the bridge as we're walking across it.
That's a good way to put it. So it's not just about, feeling calmer. It's about making better decisions, having more fulfilling relationships, essentially living a more awakened life.
Absolutely. Ajahn Lee actually saw breath meditation as a really direct path to experiencing the Four Noble Truths.
Wow, that's huge. And it all starts with just paying attention to your breath.
And, while his teachings are rooted in Buddhism, the beauty of it is that it's a practice that anyone can benefit from, regardless of what they believe. It's like a universal tool for self-discovery and transformation.
I love that. A huge thank you for taking this deep dive with me. And for our listeners, the takeaway here is that a centered mind isn't some esoteric concept. It's a practical skill that we can all develop with the power of breath awareness. It's about building that inner fortress, navigating those unexpected guests, and ultimately living a more awake and fulfilling life. And on that note, Ajahn Lee leaves us with this. If the truth lies right at the tip of our nose, what might we discover by paying closer attention to our breath? Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering, and keep taking those deep dives.